Hey team, welcome to Colbyashi Maru, the show that devs all over the world boldly face off against the most logical tools on the web. I'm Colby Fayok, your Space Jelly commander and host of today's challenge. Today we have Matías Hernández. Matías is a senior React dev at CleverTech. He's an ambassador for Auth0 and a media developer expert for Cloudinary. He also has a podcast in Spanish called Café con Tech, as well as a newsletter course that focuses on JavaScript and web, also in Spanish. So let's bring him in. Oh, wrong scene. There we go. Hey, Matías, do you want to give a quick introduction? And is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, hey Colby, thanks for having me. I'm very excited and nervous for this show and the challenge. I don't know. I'm a JavaScript developer mainly, been around for ages and work as a remote developer. I'm father of two little kids and I have an amazing partner. So that's my life.
Awesome. Well, if you're new to Colbyashi Maru, our guest Matías will have 1 hour to complete their project. Through that time, Matías will talk out loud as he's working through the challenge. I'll also be asking questions along the way. So if you have a question, definitely reach out in chat and I'll field them over to Matías. And today he'll be facing off about building a developer portfolio with Gatsby, Tailwind, and MDX. If Matías doesn't finish that challenge, all is not lost. We'll see if he has enough time to finish it up. Otherwise, we'll just kind of chat about what the next steps would be. So Matías, do you want to, before we get started, talk a little bit about the tools that we'll be using before you dive in?
Yeah, we will working with Gatsby. That's static site generation, and it's just recently published the version 3 of that. Basically allow you to use React to create your static pages, and then you can just deploy it whatever place you want, Netlify for for convenience. We'll be using MDX, that is basically Markdown with superpowers that allow you to render the dynamic content into it like React components. And we will be using the amazing utility library for CSS Tailwind to create the layout that I will try to do with my poor design skills. But more than that, we will be using a tool that calls Twin Macro. Chose to Ben Rogerson for that. That is basically allow you to do Tailwind, but in CSS in JS manner.
That's
So
interesting.
you have the power of JavaScript inside everything. And that is basically what we try.
That sounds awesome. I haven't actually used Twin Macro before, so I'm excited to see what that looks like. But cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, if you're ready to go, I think we can get started. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Do you want to show a little bit the supposed outcome of the challenge?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that sounds good. If you want to review that quick.
Yeah, we can just show what they need to expect. So basically, it's a little site that will hold you what you can share as a portfolio. In my head, the portfolio will have some feature work, maybe some client work or application that you have. All of this is just learning Ipsum data. And also some articles, yeah, and whatever you have as a RSS source. That is a feed from free CodeCamp. You can add whatever you want as basically you only need the source plugin for Gatsby, but we will just using MDX. This is totally MDX, and this is RSS feed. And we'll have a little page that is just an about me that is written with MDX and showing a Twitter from Colby that is comes from MDX Magic and a package from Poly Scadon that calls. We will show that in the moment that allow you to insert different content.
That sounds awesome. Cool. Well, if you're ready to get started, I'm ready to start the timer. Does that
Yeah,
sound good?
let's do it.
Cool. Okay. Well, in 3, 2, 1, let's go.
So the idea is to start from scratch. So I will just create a new Colbyashi Maru folder and we'll try to just npm init Gatsby. This will show you a little questions to create a new project, and hopefully it not take too much. Colbyashi
This is
Maru, the
interesting.
name.
I've never actually seen the init version of Gatsby because I've only ever used like create, what is it? Gatsby create, like the starter. So this is
Yeah,
cool to see.
this is from scratch. We will not add any CMS at this point. We will add emotion because Twin Macro use the styled components API. You can use styled components or emotion. I like emotion. And we will just add, we should add React Helmet. I will avoid it for this occasion. That helps you with the SEO process. We will not add sitemap and none of that. That please do it for real. But we will add Markdown for MDX. Yes. And let's hope this doesn't take too much time.
And
while that happens,
of course, it always does.
yeah, that's npm and the poor connection here down at the end of the world. So this will install everything you need to start. Then you can go and configure. That is what we will do. Some of the plugins that you'll need and the content that you want to show. The kind of an outline of the process is we want to have different MDX files that belongs to different categories. In this case, projects and posts. So one are articles and what are projects. So we'll need a way to source that. Gatsby do the source process or reading process directly from the page directory. But this content is not in the pages directory. So we need to create pages for all of that. So we will use the routing, the file system routing API from Gatsby for that magic. And then we will just start creating components with Twin Macro to do a little CSS there. And thank you for Tailwind. We will not to really write CSS. No.
I take it you preferred not to write your CSS by hand?
I love it. I don't hate CSS. I'm not good at that maybe, but Tailwind gives you a really kick in the process. It's simple and it's completely configurable. Yeah. So in my own site, I'm using Tailwind too, and I have custom fonts, custom spaces, custom margins, whatever. You need to just add it. And now with the new thing that Tailwind unveiled with the just-in-time compiler, will be really quick to develop. So
yeah, I was watching that release video. That seems like it's a pretty big game changer.
Yeah, it has little quirks here and there with development process, and when you start customizing a lot, it tends to go slow. I'm sorry, but it's taking some time.
It's understandable. It happens. Hey, but we have hello and Facundo.
Yeah, Facundo is a Out ambassador from Argentina, the other side of the Cordillera of the mountains here. So this kind of a neighborhood.
Nice.
And looks like thank you for the shirt, there we go. Sam. So yeah, we just need to here, and here we have at the bottom. So here we have the site. That's all. That's all what we need, and we will start tweaking this out. So the first things we have is the basic, really basic configuration from Gatsby. That is basically adding Gatsby plugin, Emotion, plugin MDX, and the source file system. What we need is, as I mentioned, I'm taking my notes here, the cheat sheet. We need to just source content from other places. So we'll copy this, twice, and we'll set to this plugin to read from post, that is the name, and we'll read from content post. Same here. I still not know how to do multiple cursors in Vim.
Oh, you're going Vim.
Yeah, this lightweight.
I like to stick with VS Code.
Yeah, but as I mentioned, my computer is kind of old, and sharing a screen and all of that
Fair enough.
Will not be good. So that is all. That is all that we need for Gatsby plugin MDX. Um, at this point, at this point, next step will be go back to the console. Let's save this. Go back to the console and start installing some of the dependencies that we will need. So I mentioned that we will use Twin Macro. So let's load the site at some point. While that, we will install Gatsby plugin RSS feed, as I mentioned. Gatsby, that's not the name. Gatsby source RSS feed, Twin Macro, and Gatsby remark images. I don't think that we will need it. And now we need Tailwind, CSS, and Twin Macro, and we will need a little things from Emotion that I think are already installed, but I don't want to do it after. Same with MDX. MDX. I think that's all that we need. So while that is running, and obviously I wrote something wrong, we can do it later. We can, while that is running, we can take a look at the Twin Macro site. Basically, this is use bubble macros to give you this power of writing Tailwind code inside your components. But what I like most is this API. Then what? Whoa. Okay.
Yarn registry isn't like it.
No, I wrote motion instead of emotion. I should just copy that, but yeah. So this is if you, in case you don't know, this is CSS and JS. This is the styled components API that's basically use this what is it? These backticks to create a temple literal. It's a temple function and takes all of this and converts it to Tailwind because this is Tailwind. But more than that, you can use this other API, this other way to write, and that this allows you to style any component, like reading another component and pass Tailwind CSS and also custom CSS. So in case you don't know or you don't have how to write Tailwind, like for example, grid columns that are different sizes, you can just write it with your hand.
That's pretty neat. So the Twin Macro itself, though, is pretty much creating those reusable components with Tailwind styles.
Yeah. The Twin Macro will take care of compile everything that Tailwind create, and you don't end with this a bunch of classes in your HTML that people tend to hate. You end just with a non-clash names for classes that are actually automatic. So there we go. We can just do Gatsby develop. We will change this and open to be able to write. Let's see if Gatsby develop is about to run. So the first thing that we will do, okay, that's not the first thing I will do. The first thing we will do I will copy over some content to post in the projects, the MDX file from other sources. Let's see that I have a bunch of things I already created.
I feel like you have to write all that from scratch. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the MDX, we can write one.
Yeah. No, I'm totally just kidding. You can, that makes sense.
I think this here, content, and we can just copy to here. Okay. Yeah, so now we can, oh, damn it. Wait for it. Content. So if we can check one post. Yeah, this is MDX. In case you don't know, this is just Markdown, and it have this little thing here on the top that is called from matter. This is the thing that we will use to create some magic to differentiate the posts and the projects because it's very similar. You can think of this as variables that are queryable. So basically with Gatsby, you can query these variables and use it for I don't know, create, render different templates, render different things, take decisions. And the variable that is important for us here is type. It could be named as variant, but it's read better, but yeah, type sounds good for me in Spanish.
It makes sense.
The image here is just a lorem ipsum image that comes from the URL, and this is just content that whatever. Same thing with projects. Yeah, that's not how you write project. And if it's load and it's not, yeah, the project, the only difference is that doesn't have tags and have this client thing. Very same. Now we can go back to the console. Still building. So file system route API. Gatsby what offers is the ability to create pages in two possible ways. One is by manually writing imperative code, kind of imperative code, to in your Gatsby node file to create pages as you want it, or leveraging the system Gatsby to do it by yourself for you. How we can do that is basically writing some, let's try to show you, file system route API Gatsby. We will create inside our src pages, we will create a using this weird notation, we will create the name of our content. And in this case, sorry, it's trying to load things. Okay. We will use the name of the source, that will be MDX. We will access to the front matter variables, and we will access to the nested variable type. So this folder will be named as post or projects. And inside of that, okay, let's create that thing first.
Just so you know, it looks like you had a little typo in there, the A and the M of the matter.
Yeah, I noticed. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't actually seen the new Gatsby file route system, because traditionally, yeah, like the typical way was to use the Gatsby node process.
Yeah. So now, MDX front matter type, and then you can access that. Oh, it doesn't know how to do it. And we can create a new file that we'll call MDX, and we will use a value that comes directly from the Gatsby world, that is this log. And this log is created by Gatsby when created the page, and it's basically the file path, but with dashes. That's all. That's all that we need to create that.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. So we can now try to local zoom, put these controls in any place that doesn't work. We can just go to our GraphiQL. In case you don't know, Gatsby offers this graphical thing that allow you to just see what you have and try different queries.
So as someone who's not an expert with GraphQL, GraphiQL is amazing.
Yeah, this thing will let you know if you are basically screwing up your queries or not. So these are our queries. What I did here, in case you wanted to know, this is the same query. The different thing is that I'm querying the all MDX. That is the name of the node created by the Gatsby. But I'm querying with this filter that is filtering by from matter and type. So I have a collection of projects here. I label that as projects. And then I have a collection of posts. Simple as that. It's very similar query, but different with a little things here. So I have projects. This is all of my projects. And I have posts. These are my posts.
So just to kind of connect the dots of how that actually ended up there. So you have all your content MDX files. So the first thing you do is make that available with the file system, the plugin, right? And then once you have that, you're able to make it queryable into the GraphQL system, right?
Yeah. So the Gatsby source, yeah, obviously because I don't have the template. Let's go to the the first thing that we did was adding the Gatsby source file system configuration to source from different directories, different folders. That will create the nodes for you. That allow you to query the content. So that's what we did here. After that, we created these folders with this weird naming with the, I don't know how you call, curly braces. Yeah. And that create pages from the content that you already sourced. But what we didn't do here is actually create the component that will render that thing. So we need to go there. Yeah, that's why you're seeing this nice error overlay. By the way, it's nice. So
that is a nice error.
Yeah. So we can just click here. Oh, damn it. I've been using Emacs for I don't know how much, and now I'm forgetting some keyboard. The muscle memory is failing. Okay, so we need to import React from React. I know that this not required in React 17, but I'm not sure. And we can create our post or project function that will return there. We need to also import GraphQL from Gatsby because we will need to write a query. And since I don't have a good memory and I'm like every other developer, just Googling things, and I think I'm checking
use
my
Google
notes
every day.
Yeah, the thing is the problem is not to find and paste code. Is you need to know what you are searching.
Exactly.
So we need to export a new variable that we can name whatever you want. This is query, and we will write a query. This is other part of the file system row API that allow you to query, and magically they pass you an ID that is created by Gatsby when creating your nodes. So we are querying only for this particular node. We are querying MDX with an ID equal to the variable ID. And now we can just query the same thing that we saw in the GraphiQL. We want the ID, we want the front matter, and we want the title, the type, the description, and the image. Close. And finally, we want the body. The body is what is wrote outside of the front matter in the post. And now we can back here and just render a very ugly thing. We will go to Tailwind quickly. We will render MDX from matter title just for now. But from where that MDX comes from the props that are passed automatically magic again from the connection between that query down there and the components. So that query returns a data object that inside of it have the MDX object.
So everything we saw that you query in graphical, that's essentially what it's grabbing for us dynamically,
Yeah.
and then passing into our component.
And let's see what is been missing, because always something missing.
Do we need an export default for that component?
Thank you. Export default. I'm so used to just write the export default with the name again for the arrow function that I don't even know if you can just do it in one line.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a good question.
Again, oh, the floating windows of Zoom can go to the other monitor. Didn't know. Okay, let's see. It's taking a bit of time, but it's going somewhere.
Now that you have all that data going through that pipeline, it needs to actually take time to build all those pages.
Cannot read MDX from undefined. Thank you. And why? It's seeing things as. Damn it. Okay, so I'm missing something here. Post one. And here is where graphical comes to. So I have my data here. I will take one ID. We'll remove that. And this is something good from graphical. It gives you, it's writing things for you. So MDX ID equal to.
And just so you know, we have a few minutes under 40 minutes left.
We're still in good shape yet.
Yeah.
And then from matter title. Okay, that's working. Okay, never mind. As you see, this is doing something. It's kind of rebuilding. I don't know. This is maybe me, maybe my computer. I don't know. But Gatsby team, I've been having a lot of trouble with Gatsby develop. That is kind of catching things, and when I add things to the site, I need to again run it. I don't know.
Maybe something weird in the cache got stuck.
Yeah, word dimension.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's say that is done and it's working, and we can see the title. We will revisit that. Let's do another thing right now. Let's go to pages index. And this is the index file that Gatsby give you for as default. And I will just drop it. And we will write a new index page.
So that file was what they gave you when you ran Gatsby init? That was okay.
Yeah, it gives you a pretty good example, to be honest, with styles, list, images, and whatnot. So I will not receiving any props yet. And what we will want is to go back in graphical. We want this query. So we'll import GraphQL from Gatsby. We will create a query here. GraphQL. And I will just leave it there. So now we are receiving here the data, the post, and the projects. And now we can return just something for now. Welcome. And now, while that is doing something and we can't see anything yet, we will start doing some, how to say it, some Tailwind magic. We will first create a setup Tailwind, the twin macro, to be honest. To first, we need to import TW style and global styles. I'm importing that because I know that I will use that. But Twin take care of adding some base styles that comes in here inside the global styles. And we need to use global, global and CSS from emotion react to add the global styles automatically. So we will create a little base style here using CSS, and we will set that body will have, I don't know, Tailwind. We will say it will be background blue 15 and W screen. That means the width of the full screen, and that is the height of the full screen. That is basically when you add this 10 VH, so viewport height.
Interesting.
And then we'll create a component that renders, renders a fragment to hold first the global styles that comes from Tailwind, and then using global from emotion we will render our base styles, and we'll put this in here. This should go to the layout component, by the way, but we don't have it.
Okay, yeah.
And we'll see. So here we have an error. Yeah, thank you. We have an error that since I'm using Vim, I don't have it linting, all of that, and I'm missing a curly brace there.
Yep.
And
I think
then
you might need a fragment, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And there is another error that you need to restart the development server because I create just a new query that needs to be processed. Remember that this is a static site generator that process all of this in the server, retrieve all of the data, perform all of the queries, and write and spit out HTML, just pure HTML with a little bits of JavaScript here and there.
So every time you write one of those queries for your page, you'll have to restart the server so that Gatsby's file system can actually pick that up.
Yeah, I can be completely wrong on this, but that is my experience, and it's what I'm seeing in some of the messages that are actually good. But yeah,
it's so helpful when
that.
Yep, there we go. It's so helpful though when framework and libraries put helpful error messages.
Yeah, if you want to see or read the best error messages out there, you should check out Elm.
Nice.
The Elm language. The Elm compiler is the best thing you can see in the world with the messages. Okay, so we have the first bit of the site. We have the welcome message here, and we have the base styles. As you see, this is not white. This is kind of a pale blue. Done. Portfolio done. No? Yeah.
Mic drop.
Yeah, so let's try to do a little layout. And we will create it right here, and then we can just move it around. I tend to do this when I'm developing my own sites, like writing everything in the place where I need it, and then I just move it around to set up the architecture and the components and all of that.
For sure.
It's basically doesn't matter really.
Yeah, I definitely find it easier because you can be more productive writing it all out in one file, but then you can abstract it however you want later, right?
Yeah, and something that resonates a lot with me, I think I read it from Ken C. Dodds, this avoid hefty abstractions. One way to avoid hefty abstraction is to abstract only when you see it. So if you're writing every component here and you see that the posts are rendered in the same way as the projects, then go ahead and create the abstraction. If not, just create the post card.
Makes sense.
So this will be the layout. So I will again render the styles, but this will be used by every other page. And I used to have a container that contain everything again, and because this allow me to have a main structure, a navbar that for now will set navbar because it's just placeholder, and we'll render the children. And why I have this main? Because I can have a footer, and voila, we have the structure. Now we need to create the components. So our container component will be a styled components at just a div that will be, I don't know, flex and columns, it is Tailwind, and will be margin X in the X axis automatically. That is the same thing that we write margin zero, sorry, and will be max width screen LG that I think that is 1024 pixels, and the full screen. Then
so that's really just creating a new component with that simple line then. But
yeah,
what it's doing is wrapping it with those styles. That's pretty neat.
yeah, that, and accept every prop, so you can pass props as the children one. That is automatically there. And if you're writing TypeScript, that I encourage you to do for real projects, you can type the props there. And we create another Tailwind component here that will say the main main component, and we'll have a padding X of 4 that is 0.5 rams. And finally, our last component is the footer that will be a 1 ram and top and bottom, a background of gray 200s. And let's see if that makes the deal.
And I think you're going to get an error. I think you have an extra. Yep, exactly there.
Yep. But you know that this is something I wanted to show. Nice is happens happens organically. This is an error that comes from Twin Macro. It's saying me that I mistakenly wrote max W screen LG. Obviously, it's missing an E, but it's asking me if I should use this one or this one, and that's also giving me the name. So it gives you the names of the classes. I know that when you are just starting with Tailwind, the most useful tools are this and the Tailwind CSS site open, because you need to remember the names of the things.
Yeah, there's quite a lot.
Yeah. Okay, we are not using the layout. So we need to go to that line 7. And we replaced it with layout. Remove that. Wait for it. Yeah, there.
Yay.
There is it. Yeah, we have few things. Now, let's focus on, let's jump around here, and we will, since we wrote the layout, we will use our first MDX thing. We will import MDX provider from mdx.js/react. Damn it. React. And we'll wrap the children around with this. We do this to be able to create an MDX page and render some content there. And one thing that is nice is that we have control of this variable, this argument or prop components that allow you to pass custom components to manage how the MDX will render. So let's create, for example, an H1, and let's say that H1 will be a bold font and will be a big text. We'll have an underline and we'll have some paddings. Let's also say that we will write a paragraph that need a better name, with some paddings at the top and the bottom, and we'll have a maximum width of 768 pixels and centered. We'll create an object that says a mapping between every HTML element that is tagged as H1 will be rendered as a H1, and let's pass the props. Oh, done. Every paragraph will be the same.
That's pretty nice that it lets you by default have that capability to pass in those maps.
Yeah. And one of the things that you can do with that, you can do it manually, or you can go to MDX embed. And this is a little nice little project that have a collection of ready to use components that are actually not, you don't need to import in your MDX file and just use it, like Twitter Snack. This is a shameless plug, but I added a few components here, like a Snack that allow you to. This is a project from Poly, and allow you to insert code sandbox boxes, etiquette lessons, GIST, Instagram, and whatnot. So now, coming back to the project, since we have this MDX provider done, we can go and create a template. Let's jump here. You may wondering why we want a template. We wrote a template for our post, and we want to create an about page. That is common use case for our sites. To create that we will need to just touch into the src pages and create an about MDX file. But that file will need to render somehow. For that, we can create templates and create a template for our page. But we need to tell. First, we need to write the template actually. And the template is basically another React component, and this could be a little tedious. And so, sorry, we need another thing. We need now a components folder, components, and we need sorry, I didn't bump the font size here. Okay, why we need that? Because we will need to import it. It's not created yet, but another nifty trick that I didn't set up here is that you can use absolute imports with a plugin that is available in Gatsby too, to avoid that //.
Nice. Is that the Gatsby source plugin?
It's it's called Gatsby alias import, if I recall correctly.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so it gives you a little advantage there. So we will just return the layout that I need to create, the children that I need to pass, and the layout. Children.
Just so you know, we have slightly under 20 minutes left.
Wow. Okay, so we need to add some things. Layout. Oh. I will bring all of this with me. And we'll just need to export default the layout. And now go.
So at this point, you're really just moving that layout component that you created back over to its own component file.
Exactly, because I just need it in another place. Components, layout. Okay, why I need it? Because we create an MDX page. This is automatically created by Gatsby. Every MDX file that it sits into the pages folder will be just rendered as MDX. Yep, that. And we can even query the pages that we have while the site is loading. We can alt site pages, and we can node, and yeah, let's just check the path. We have a dev 404 page, the 404, our post, the other post, and the about page. So we have a role for the about page. Yeah, that is the H1 that we just did it. Let's see it. Okay, this is not the H1 that I just did. And why not? I don't know.
Is
Weird.
that page wrapped in the layout? It is,
No.
yeah. No?
Ah, yeah. Sorry, I forgot that. Thank you, Colby. Actually, the pair programming works good. Never tried.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easier to see something that when you're not deep inside of it.
Yeah. What is missing is something that I actually taken from my notes. We need to configure the Gatsby plugin MDX. So we will pass the options here. And the option that we need to pass is options. All of these options are documented in the Gatsby plugin MDX page. It default layout, and we will use the name. We can pass layout for every. I'm using my hands. Everything here, but we will pass a layout only for the pages, and will be path join your name src, and we have the template and templates, and it's called pages. Page.
Just, I think templates has a little typo there.
Yeah. It will fail. And that's all. So now, thank you. We need to reload.
It's nice that they pop up that warning for you.
Yeah. But I don't see it every time. Not sure what is the difference. Maybe I just beat the server and I kill it before. I don't know. So what we just did here, we'll tell saying to MDX plugin that every content that is comment that is sourced from the pages directory should use the template page that we just create to be rendered. So now we should see the about page wrapped around with this. And if it's restarted, no, it's not restarting. So the only thing that is missing, and we have around 15 minutes, I think, is
Yep,
to
just under.
actually show something in here. And we have a little something to show. We can show the projects. So we will create, damn it. We will create a listing of the projects, and we will try to use some things to some cards. We'll create a card. A card usually have a container for the card, and inside of that it has the image, the content, and inside the content you can see the title, the body, and some text, for example, for the date. So I create the card container, and this will be a div that will be full width. I will say it will be gray in the background. We'll have a little border, and one thing that is actually nice, and I always tend to forget the class name for this, is doing a transformation.
Mm.
We will just and it's weird because the name is really simple. We'll do a transformation here with a transition that is basically saying when it's hovering, I will scale the card to 110%, and I will just be secure that the C index is okay. Voila.
The syntax for that's interesting. So you're basically passing it as arguments because you're putting a space between them, right?
Where here
For the
the scale
transform
thing.
and transition, or no, transform. Yeah, because the
Yeah,
transform when you have it in there.
yeah. You can put it in whatever place. Just the name of the the class. So I just tend to I'm just trying to give some sort of order. So I write my transformations after the actual transform class. But you can just write it like this. That is tend to be more readable.
Yeah.
Oh, I just missed the keyboard. Where is? Ah, there. Then we will have the card content. It will be another div that is a flex and will be centered. Then a body that will be a div and flex, but in columns, and we'll have a margin left off. I'm just writing it off for memory here because I know that I will need that. Yeah. Yeah, but here comes another power of the twin macro. We can style whatever we want. Link is a component that comes from Gatsby. And we can style it without actually passing class names or whatever. We can just do common CSS here if you want. But if you want to do common CSS, you need to use styled instead of TW. And we will say the links will be text cell because it's a title and it's typo here. That will beat me after. Oh, damn it. Something is eating the RAM. And we'll say that will be bold and we'll have some margins. And finally, I like to just add the date, and will be just a paragraph with a little gray text with some margins. And now we can create another piece that is missing here. And that is basically a container for the cards. So let's say this will be a project container, and will be actually, yeah, will be a grid with 2 columns with some gap between it and some margin. Done. And now we can just project container, and I think that should be pluralized, and we'll enter into projects nodes if you check the query, projects is the name of the label, nodes is the name of the object, and will be mapped around that and receive a project. And I'm missing a parenthesis there.
So just so you know, it's just under 10 minutes.
Yep. And we'll write. Okay, I'm missing a little thing here. We actually need to wrap the project card with an item and write this and create the card container. I'm missing the autocomplete here.
Yeah.
And we'll write the card content. We write an image. I'm not using Gatsby image here, the new plugin, because it's just new, one thing, and because I can use the static one, because Gatsby plugin gives you two images: static for static images, real static images, and this is not static because it comes from the from some URL. And I didn't figure it out yet. How can I source or the front matter image that I have as a sharp plugin? So doing some transformation to make it available for Gatsby to manage. For now, it's just a string.
Yeah, I think that'll definitely work.
But this make the thing. We will show the title. We will show the text that we create, and we'll set item description. Yeah. And I'm missing something there. Now we can go here and set project card key. Don't forget your keys. And pass the item, and we will pass the project, and I will destructure immediately the from matter and whatever it comes. Why? Because I don't want to handle the data, the object inside the. Wow.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Well, this is embarrassing because I just forgot one thing. Path. Yeah, now is. Yeah, I just don't like to handle. The project card is just a component that render a plain object. And you should not handle all of the different situations into that. You should just pass the prop. Even in an ideal world, I will just change this to be a link that is already set up. And I just used to do this and left the parent to pass data. Let's wait for this. There is a query here. But this query already worked. Let's see what's happening. If not, we will use the last minutes debugging a Gatsby site.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I will not finish all of that in under the few minutes that we'll have. But the base project that doesn't have any good styling yet will be in GitHub. So in case you want it as a starter.
And I can definitely link that in the show notes.
As a starter, Science doesn't have any style, it can be used for that. And I want to thank you also, Paulie, because this routing thing comes from an idea from here. He helped me to identify the way to do it.
We still have just under 5 minutes left. Let's see what we get.
I'm trying to start the development server. I'm not sure what the hell is happening. Maybe it's just me and And I remember when you told me about this, I said, okay, I will do it, and I conclude sanity and OG images and all of that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly the time ends up going.
Yeah, and we tend to over underest no overestimate ourselves. Science. This is something that you do a lot, like creating Gatsby sites.
Yeah, but I think we made some good progress still.
Okay,
But
I will try
if only
this.
Gatsby, if only Gatsby loaded a little bit quicker.
Yeah, but I think it's my own computer that is giving me some headaches. Maybe that's why I'm not live streaming. It's embarrassing to show your ancient computer just dying.
Well, since we only have about 3 minutes left, if you would prefer, just because we don't know where Gatsby's going to actually go with this, would you prefer to kind of just walk through the code that you have?
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
and we can kind of just talk about the solution and
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
This is more complete. Anyway, I'm still trying to start. The query is failing. Okay, basically, this is the same thing. And the big difference comes from the index page that is a bit more, how to say it, order. Like,
You have it more organized.
yeah, more organized. I just split the project card into components by itself, and it here is the project card, the postcard, and the free code cam card. That is basically the same as postcard, but with different data into it. And this is what we just did. And then I just repeat, rinse and repeat, because it's the same. But one thing that I would like to show is that, okay, this F.
So we were pretty close to having that. Pretty close
Yeah.
to having it done in the actual project.
One thing I want to show you is this one. It's not that clever, but no. Okay, here. Remember that we create a card title that was styling a link component,
Mm-hmm.
and the link component comes from Gatsby. But in this component, I don't need a link from Gatsby. I need an anchor from HTML. So what I can do is just style it again. But since this is the same style, I just can use the as prop that basically tell the card title that was a link to reuse the styling and render as it's an anchor instead of a link.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Okay.
can just hijacking the component that is being rendered, and instead of render a link, it renders an anchor, a basic anchor. This is something that you can do with emotion and style components too.
That way you can still have your components the way that you'd like, and it also makes it a little bit more flexible.
Yeah. What else I can show you? Oh, okay. From layout. Okay, in this project, I installed the MDX embed that I show you in the browser, and you can see it from here. And that what allow me is to create, for example, I think that is in first, it's in post one. Yeah, if it loads. Yeah, we can with that makes available components like this one, YouTube, and that will
Mm.
render a YouTube player in place inside your MDX file
That's one of the
automatically.
beautiful things about MDX is that you can use React components right inside.
Yeah, and so just to be able to show that thing, I will Gatsby serve, not develop. this is hang somehow. Oh, damn it. This is something that's been happening a lot for me. That is missing journalist. Don't even know what journalist is, and then you just run yarn and quickly solve the issue.
I've never heard of that package. Is it since the upgrade to the new Gatsby?
Yeah. But this project actually was not upgraded. Was just directly from scratch there. So localhost. This is a project that is already built and ready to be shipped. Obviously no, because it sucks in terms of design, but this is
I think it does a good job at kind of showing what you can do with that dynamic content.
This is the post one, and there we go. Come on. Voila, we have a YouTube component inside of it without taking care of the iframe on the embed and all of that. Just put the component there. Actually, this is a good learn with JSON episode.
Yep, he does a good job.
Yep, this is it. And this is what, and the transition that we were writing there is this one. When you hover, effect, the component pops out. That is the transition.
And this is a great way to kind of being able to use the MDX files is a great way that if you're a developer, you can manage all of your content like that and suck it in to your Gatsby site to render out these pages.
And in terms of next step, what is missing here is I don't have a list of logs or articles that you can create with MDX2, because you can
that wasn't
query,
on the homepage?
You can query GraphQL inside of MDX. You can run a query.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah. It's like nesting the deep levels.
Yeah. Then obviously it needs a footer. And next step could also be adding a CMS. Like to manage your content, because this content is MDX. I like MDX and I like to have my own files and markdown and all of that, but it's hard to write to a bunch of things when you have a lot of things. But you can use Netlify CMS that allow you to write markdown still, or you can use Forestry, still managing files inside your GitHub, and you will be okay.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things. I love both of those options because it still works with those same files and it just makes those changes to the content right inside of your Git provider. So it's really not integrating into your app. More so it's changing the files by giving you an editor on top of those MDX files.
Exactly. And then it will commit and push to your GitHub. And as an end result, I went and plugged my site. That is, as you say, this is not too much different in terms of design. And even use the same effect.
I think it looks great.
Yeah, but
this is what you can do.
This is what you can do. This is actually using Gatsby Node and to retrieve the OG image from Edhead. This is a plugin to render the Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout is a podcast provider. The Buzzsprout player into it. This is just RSS. This is a feed, and these are the articles. And what you can do is basically just have the articles rendered here, and with a Edhead video here, and yeah,
that's awesome.
That's all.
And you even have dark mode. Nice, dark and light mode.
Yeah, that comes for free, almost for free with Tailwind.
Oh,
and
nice.
Yeah, this is little and quick. What you can do is, I think we did it in layout. You need to do a little configuration in your Tailwind config CSS file, config.js file. But you can do is basically, this is the background, okay? And if you have dark option enabled, you have a modifier that is dark, bg gray 9. That means that when dark is enabled, it will render that class instead of the other. And how do you enable dark? Just adding the dark class to the HTML component, or element.
Interesting.
and
That's not
voila.
too bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all.
Awesome. Well, I think you did a really great job. You didn't get to this exact spot, but I think there was a lot of value in this because, being able to use Gatsby and corral all that data is definitely a powerful thing for developers who want to put up their own dev portfolio. So this is great.
Thank you.
Cool. So thank you, Matthias. And, thanks everybody else for joining. I'd like to thank you, Matthias, for accepting the challenge to face off on Colbyashi Maru. Be sure, everybody, to check out Matthias's podcast, Cafe Contec, as well as his Microbytes newsletter course, which I'll definitely link to in the show notes. But next week, we'll have James Quick, who will face off against automating social images with Airtable, Cloudinary, and serverless functions. So, Matthias, any last words before we drop out?
Um, yeah, just keep coding, keep pushing your developer portfolios. There is a nice course in Edhead from I just forgot the name. Sorry, Lorient Tech about Gatsby portfolio, so you can use that too as a source of knowledge. And MDX is all about the created content, so go ahead and publish whatever you want. This is the idea is to create your own place in the world. So Gatsby
Exactly.
will
Love
help
that.
you a lot with that. And Gatsby, if it's Gatsby not your thing because the static site generator take a lot of time, you can go and check Next. And Colby here have a lot of Next.js content.
Yep. Exactly. Cool. Well, thanks, Matthias. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And this is Colby signing off.